Hi, I'm Nash and you're watching Nash Outdoor, and today I'm going to be building a waterproof speaker box, almost like a turtle box, but I think mine's going to be better. It's going to have two speakers. This is an Apache 2800. The speakers are going to be two marine grade Polk 5 1/4 inch speakers. I'm going to have a switch, external antenna, voltmeter, and I think that's it. So this is the case right here. It's an Apache 2800 from Harbor Freight. It's about 30 bucks. It has this foam on the inside that you can pull out. I don't think we'll be needing the foam. So here's all the parts that I'm going to use for this build. So I already talked about the box, but this is a voltmeter with a USB-C and a USB charger on it. Here's some Velcro to attach the amp and the battery and some other things to the inside of the box. Here's the battery itself. This is for a Bluetooth antenna. This is the Bluetooth antenna. Here is a connection to go from the Bluetooth antenna to the amplifier. Then moving on to the amplifier, this is a ZK1002T amplifier with the IPEX Bluetooth connection on it. In there. Then you need these DC ports and plugs. So it comes with the ports and the plugs. You need this for the amplifier, for the charger. You need a bunch of them, so just get a pack like this from Amazon. Here's the latching LED switch that I chose. Here are some lever connectors to make it easy to connect the wires, because soldering can be pretty expensive and time consuming. So here's lever connectors. Here's some wire. I don't know if I'm actually going to need this because most of it comes with wire. Here's the speakers I'm going to be using. They are Polk 5 1/4 inch speakers. They're marine grade, so they'll be waterproof. These should sound really nice. Then this is sound deadening. This will go in the bottom of the box to make sure that it doesn't sound like a hollow box. So these are all the parts that I chose. You know, you can mix and match these parts. You can do different speakers. You can make it not waterproof. You could choose different amps, different switches, everything. You can customize it to how you want, which is pretty much why I like this over the turtle box. Way more customizable. And yeah, so let's get started with the build. First, I'm gonna try to mark out spots for the speakers. So here are the speakers. Comes with instructions and stuff. Here's one of them. These speaker wires do not come attached. They come with it, but I attached these earlier. Here's a speaker grill. Looks pretty good. Here's the speaker itself. And then there's that one. It also comes with these butt connectors to connect these speaker wires to extra wire if you need it. And it comes with these screws and these locking metal pieces over here. They're not nuts. They're like, it's a special type of, it's just these pieces of metal that are kind of angled, and you put the screw through there and it kind of cinches down. So that's the speakers. Alright, so now I've made this template. Now I'm going to trace this hole out. There we go, there's one. Now I'm going to trace this one out. There we go, those are two holes. I didn't have any electricity in there, so I brought it over here where I have electricity. What I'm going to be using is this rotary tool that has a cutoff wheel on it. And then my pilot holes are just going to be with the step bit and a drill. Alright, so I have both my holes drilled out for the speakers. There's one, there's two. This is the one that I did with the cutoff wheel. This is the one that I did with the jigsaw. So you have more control with the cutoff wheel, but it takes way longer than the jigsaw. So this one, you know, the fit is really tight, like there's no moving around or whatever. The one with the jigsaw, there's a little bit of room, but not much. So, you know, it's still, you'll still be able to get a nice bead of silicone around this this lip right here. So both of the holes are fine. You could choose either method. You could even do a hole saw, but you know, once you get a hole saw this big, they start getting expensive. So yeah, I'm just lining these up. I'm marking where my holes are gonna be. I'm gonna trace around here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut these ribs down so that this lip will sit flush against the surface of this. So I'm just gonna trace the outside of here, and then all of my imperfections will get covered up eventually by this speaker grill. So it doesn't have to be too perfect. What makes it easier to work on these lids is to take the lid off itself. So the easiest way to do that is just undo the latches, take a small flat head like this, and then right here, press it in, push outwards, then the pin kind of pops out right here. Do the same on the other side. Then you could just use needle nose pliers, grab the pin, and pull them out. Then the lid just comes right off. You can put this over to the side, then just have your lid. That way it's easier to work on. Alright, so now I've gone in with a multi-tool with the flush cutter, and I've ground down these ribs so that the speaker will sit flush. The only thing is I'm going to go in with a sander now and just clean up all of the mess that I've made. Just make sure that there's a smooth surface that the silicone can adhere to. Okay, so at this point I'm going to install our sound deadener, which will make this box not sound as hollow. I already wiped out the inside because I'm going to do the top right here and the bottom and maybe the sides. So you just want to make sure that everything's wiped out nice and clean because this needs a good surface to stick to. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay this out, cut out a good sized piece, and then just lay it down in the back. So I cut out a good sized piece for the bottom. Before I put it in, I am going to trace a piece for the top that's the same size. Just make sure you press it down a good bit. Try to get any air bubbles out. Alright, so I have the bottom sound deadened, and then I have the top too. So what I do with this is close the box now. Then you can use a razor blade or a sharp knife, and then just go around the edges and cut these holes out. Alright, so I have the two holes cut out for, in the sound deadening. So I am going to put this piece of foam back, and then same thing. Well, actually, you also need to put these back in there. But, you put these back in there, close it up. That way, this piece won't fall in. And then you can trace this. If you did use a hole saw, you can run the hole saw in reverse, and that'll create a perfect hole. Or you could just cut it with a knife, a box cutter, really whatever you have. So I'm going to do that right now. So I have those two cut out now. That's how it's going to fit. This is how it looks from the back. It'll just poke through like that. I don't really know that that does anything for sound. I think it just looks better in my opinion. Most of this foam, I may leave this bottom piece in, but most of this bottom foam is just gonna need to go in the trash because I'm gonna have a bunch of other stuff in here that needs to be sitting right. I think one other thing that I'm gonna do really quickly is they have this pressure relief valve right here, and this is the area that I'm gonna put the switch. So to remove this, you need to get a small flathead underneath a clip, and then you can unscrew it all the way. There we go. That took some force. Then you can just unscrew this. Just like that. Now I'm gonna use this clear adhesive sealant. Go around the edge of this, plop the speakers in, put the grills on, and then I'm not gonna pre-drill these holes. I'm just gonna drive the screw straight in. Alright, got this side done. Now let's do this side. Here's the second one. Set it down in there. Make sure it's sitting right. Put the grill on. Make sure the holes are going to be lined up. Put in your first screw. Whoops. I didn't put that one in all the way. I just need to see how this is all going to lay out. Two more. There you go. So I'm actually really excited how well these speakers came out. It was kind of difficult. You know, I used the cutoff wheel on this side and I used the jigsaw on this side. The jigsaw left more room, like more play in the speakers, but it still worked just as well. I'm glad with the fitment, you know, they're all even pretty much. Now let's get on to the fun stuff, which will be the switch, the battery charger, the voltmeter, the antenna, the battery, the amp, everything else that needs to go on the inside. Before we start putting things in, I'm gonna remove the top right now, just to make it easier to work on things on the inside. Alright, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this 16mm latching switch, and y'all already saw me remove the pressure release valve up here. So now there is this little brass piece in there, but once you start drilling with this step bit, that'll come out, and then you just use a step bit and drill to the desired size, and then we'll put the switch in. There's the wiring harness, and there's the switch. Obviously that's not big enough. Let's go up a little bit. There we go. Perfect. So this switch has a little waterproof gasket on it, so I don't think I'll need any silicone for this. So we're just gonna put it in right there. Put the locking nut on the back. Then I'll tighten that down with some pliers. We're gonna install this DC charging port next. I don't know if I'm gonna do it right here or on the side yet. I'm still thinking, or on the top. So I will get back to you on that. I've decided I'm gonna put it towards the bottom right here, you know, kind of centered. Cause then up here I'm gonna put this voltmeter with this mounting plate. So we'll have that up here and then the DC port down here. Perfect. And then I need to put on this rubber cap. There we go. Put this in. I want, when this cover is open, I want it to be pointing up, I guess. Let me see. Yeah, up. Put on our locking nut. And now I'll go ahead and tighten that down with some pliers. There we go. There's the charging port. Open it up. Boom. Now I'm gonna cut out the hole for this voltmeter. It's just gonna go somewhere up in here. I'm gonna kind of use this plate to gauge where I want it. Thinking about right there. Just gonna try to mark the center. And I'm using a hole saw for this. Let me drill a pilot hole real quick. At first, I'm gonna go in reverse to kind of create the circle, and then I'll start going in forward to actually cut the circle out. There we go. So I am gonna put a small bead of that sealant around this hole and around this hole on the mounting plate, because when this drops in, I want the surface between this and this to be waterproof, and then I want the surface between here and here waterproof, and then this nut locks in from the back. I'm gonna set this plate down. What was that? And it's alright if the silicone oozes out. Just don't clean it up now while it's wet, just wait till it's dry. It'll be easier to clean up. So now I'm gonna put some silicone in this hole, so that when we put the voltmeter in, it's watertight around there too. Now we will drop this in. Squeeze it down nice and tight. Make sure everything's even. Then we'll go and tighten this nut from the back. For added security, I will screw in the 2 screws on the plate that it came with, but I'll also put a little bead of silicone in those holes too to make sure that the screws will also be waterproof. And just like I did with the speaker, I'm not going to pre-drill because 1, these screws are so small, and 2, I want them to actually grab into the material. So, you know, if I pre-drill just a little bit too big, it's not going to do anything. So I've decided I'll put this Bluetooth puck antenna in the middle of these 2. And I'm not going to put silicone on this one. Actually, yeah, I will. But it also comes with this gasket right here that goes around this nut. But I will also put silicone around this whole entire area. So I've got this little rubber gasket on. I peeled the sticker off of this puck. But I'm also just going to put a small bead of silicone around this area so that whenever I place it in, it'll be nice and sealed up. Okay, so I got that bead of silicone around there. Now I'm just going to place this down. Silicone squeezing out. Now we'll put that nut on from the back. And we'll go ahead and tighten that down. So this is the ZK1002T amplifier with the extended antenna base. So as y'all saw, I put that Bluetooth amplifier on the outside, the Bluetooth antenna on the outside. So that's where the antenna is going to connect to. And there we go. Our amplifier is all assembled. Then we'll eventually put our power into here with the DC port, and then left and right speaker, positive, negative, positive, negative. That's the volume control. This is the bass control, and then this is the treble control. So there we go. Let's start getting into the wiring. Okay, so this is where we'll need Velcro. I'm gonna cut this piece, but it's gonna go on the bottom of this battery. Then we'll stick it to the bottom of the box. And then there's a curve around the corner of the box, so the battery isn't even. So what you can do is you could just take a little piece of the foam and shove it behind the battery, and that keeps it nice and secure. Peel the tape off the back of these. And then stick it down in place. Just like that. Same thing with the amplifier, we're just going to Velcro it to the side right here. I'm going to put it kind of lower because that antenna is going to need to come up and around to get to this port right here. But we're going to Velcro it right there. Just like that. Okay, so here is the wiring harness for the switch. So this can get kind of complicated because it has 5 wires. You know, normally it's just a positive and a negative. So not all the colors are going to be the same on all switches, so make sure you check your actual switch. But on this one, the black is negative, red is positive, green is common, blue is normally open, and yellow is normally closed. So we don't need this yellow one, since when we press the switch in, we want it to light up. So we will get rid of this yellow wire. Some people just snip it and say it's fine. Some people pull it out. And some people actually de-pin it, so they stick something in there and take the whole entire pin out. I think that's what I'm going to do to make sure that we don't accidentally short anything out. So this is what I mean by de-pinning. You take the whole entire connector out. So you just stick a small screwdriver in there and just pry it out. Then you can throw away this yellow wire. Now we can go ahead and hook up our wiring harness. Just like that. Now we have 4 wires to work with. In this scenario, you're going to need either a 4 or 5 block lever connector going to your battery. And for the red, you're going to need a 2 block. So for your negative, you're going to want this black wire run into it. Boom. Connected. Now for these other wires, this red and blue one are going to need to get twisted together, because that is what makes the light light up when you press it in. Then this green one goes to the positive from the battery. There we go. So after you have done that and you twisted the red and blue wires together, now when you hit the switch, it lights up. Alright, so now you're going to need a male DC port or plug and a 3 lever connector. What you're going to do with this is that red and blue from the switch is going to go into here. So keep these two connected and just put them in one slot. They're in there. Then you're going to have the positive for the DC plug. And you're going to have your positive for the voltmeter, which I'll get in a second. And the negative for your DC plug will go to this 5 or 4 negative block. Just like that. So this is your power to your amplifier. So now you're going to take the positive from the voltmeter to this 3 block with the red and the blue from the switch and the red to the DC port. Just like that. Then the negative from the voltmeter is going to go back into your negative block. Just like that. Now this last spot is just going to be left closed. There's nothing to it. So obviously you need to clean up this wire. Well, actually, yeah. You need to clean up this wiring, so shorten wires, figure out where everything needs to go. Don't cut a wire until you know that it's actually going to be that short. Another thing that we need to do is this is the charging port for the battery. And we need to connect it to here, which is the outside. So you could go straight, connect these to each other. The only thing is the red and the black are, the positive and negative are right next to each other right here. I don't know if it would matter, but don't cut them at once. Split the wires in half, cut one at a time, just so you don't electrocute yourself and you don't ruin your battery. So I will probably do that and then just use butt connectors to connect these instead of lever connectors. You could use lever connectors. I'll probably use butt connectors just as a more, a cleaner look. So then we can plug this into our amplifier. Just like that. So now your amplifier. Oh, turn the switch on. Now you see that blue light? Now your amplifier is searching for a connection. And the solid blue light means that it's connected, which it is connected to my phone right now. So yeah, switch is on, light turns on, switch is off, light turns off. So I'm going to do this charging port really quickly, and then we can put the lid back on and connect the speaker wires to the speaker. I connected everything for the charging port, just like this. Like I said, I'll definitely clean up all this wiring. But for right now, we're gonna put this lid back on so that we can hook up the speaker wires. Alright. So the speaker wires are down here somewhere. Okay, here they are. So they're pretty short. I'm also going to need to use the butt connectors that those came with to extend the wires to the amplifier, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to make it from there to there without stretching. So I'm going to add some extra wire to these, and then we'll see how they sound. Alright, so I've got all these connected, and you might be wondering, why wouldn't you just use all new wire? And it's because the parts that actually connect to the speakers, they're 2 different sizes, and I only have one of the sizes, so I'm just trying to use these originals. So it has a little bit of factory wire and then regular speaker wire. So we'll get these hooked up. I'm gonna use the longer one for the further speaker. Okay, there we go for that one. and this one. Alright, now I'll obviously shorten these wires and we'll get them hooked up to the amplifier. So the only thing that you need to do to connect them to the amp is to unscrew the screw a little bit. You'll put your wire in there, and then you'll just screw them back shut. That's it. So this is the left speaker, negative. Left speaker, positive. Tighten that one down. Then I'll do the right speaker. Alright, so now I have the speakers connected. We're gonna plug in our amplifier power. Make sure these wires don't get pinched. Close it up. I'm also gonna need to connect that Bluetooth antenna. Let's see if it powers up though. There we go. And it connected. So there we go, let's go do a sound test. Here's after the cleanup of the wiring. I tucked away these speaker wires under here, got them all zip tied on the side, hot glued these lever connectors to the back, zip tied, made everything nice and clean. Then I velcroed the speaker charger to the side. That way I can have it in the box at all times in case if I need a charge at any point in the day. Yeah, so all this looks good on the side, and it sounds great.